Hey, welcome to another update on Archmage Rises, the greatest game in the world that I am making. And since I only work on one game at a time, I guess I could always say that.
Absolutely.
But it really is true. Archmage Rises, it's awesome. Okay, so let's start with Grumpy Old Gamer. Okay, so Grumpy Old Gamer is this guy that found Archmage Rises despite my efforts to hide it from him. He has found Archmage Rises, fallen in love with it, and then pre-ordered the collector's edition package, or no, the indie game dev edition. I don't even remember what I called my editions. And so he pre-ordered it, and then he was like, "Hey, I hear about these weekly update things. Where are those?" That's what he posted on the forums. And then I guess he found them before he got a response. So he found them, and then he emailed me to tell me that he binge watched them all night to dawn. He just kept watching them. Now, I would like to know, Grumpy Old Gamer, how many episodes did you watch in one sitting? Because I gotta say, there's probably a prize for that. I don't know how many this guy watched, but he says he watched them all night till dawn. That's pretty cool. And so I think the big takeaway from this, Nick, you want to know what the big takeaway is?
I've been waiting all day.
We got to do a better job in these videos. I mean, if people are going to come and start watching these things like it's Netflix, we need to do a better job. We got to up our game.
Absolutely. So how are we going to do that?
Well, we just did. We just said we would up our game, and then now it just happens. I thought it was your job to up it.
No, I don't think so.
You know, I have found that the more people you add to a program, the better the TV show gets. Okay?
Yeah, we could scram another head in between there.
Hey, you remember how news shows, they used to have like just one guy talking, right? Mm-hmm. And then what they do, they added the lady to the side, right? So they got two people talking. That's clearly twice as good of a show. And then you have CNN that adds like 4 and 5 people that are all kind of gathered around a table. Those are clearly the best shows to watch about news, right? It's way better than the one guy just talking.
We could do like the Brady Bunch intro where there's like, 10 different heads.
That's exactly what we should do. We should try and stretch Skype's capabilities and see how many people we can get streaming into OBS at one time, and that would be the greatest update of all.
I don't have high hopes for Skype's performance.
Okay, well, I don't have that great of internet connection, so I guess we'll just keep doing what we're doing. Okay, sorry everybody. Okay, so this week we're going to talk about the Conclave and about the lore and the backstory of Archmage Rises. But before I get into that, I would like to give a little health update, if you don't mind, Nick.
I would like to hear about it.
You give me just like a little spot here. I don't really want to give health updates because I don't really want to focus on that thing. I'd much rather keep focus on the game. But since the guy who's making the game has these health problems, I feel I should at least update people on them. So when I had my first needle to the eye, I could see the next day, and that was really exciting. The doctor at that time told me it would be like 3 to 4 months, or 3 to 4 more needles, which is 3 to 4 more months before I could see clearly, and that sounded horrible. And then the next day I could see, and that was really great, so I was really excited. And then it started to wear off, and by about the 10th or 11th day, my left eye, I couldn't really see with it anymore, and it was probably doubly sad. Like, it was sad the first time when I lost my vision, progressively lost my vision, and then I got it back, and then I progressively lost it again, and so that made me actually even sadder. So this time round, I went for my needle to the eye on April 30th, and then I was like, okay, well, I guess I kind of know what the trip is like. I'm going to get the needle, I'm going to be able to see, I'm going to be real happy, and then it's going to wear off. It's been almost 3 weeks, Nick, and I can still see perfectly.
Nice. I thought earlier, before we started, I thought it was terrible. So I'm glad to hear good news.
Oh, well, I didn't mean to give you that false impression.
Yeah.
Nick asked me before we started, hey, how come I haven't seen you on Overwatch? And my answer was because I have eye problems. And that is true in that I have been much more careful about how long I stay up. Not that I was staying up crazy hours before or something like that, but I start to feel fatigue like in my eyes and in my head, and I'm just like, I gotta shut it down. Like why push it, right? Like I've already lost vision in one eye, why push it? So So that's why you don't see me late at night. Plus, you don't play during the day anymore. I'm in the Eastern time zone. You're in the Pacific time zone.
That's true.
So you fire it up at my midnight, and I'm like, I can't jump in on that. So anyway, that's an answer to that. But anyway, so if you recall, the first time I broke news about this whole eye problem, and I'm already spending too much time in this health update. But anyway, when I first told you, Nick, and everybody else about this eye problem, I said, like, there's like a core issue, right? There's a reason that the blood clotted on my retina that ruined my vision and all this stuff, right? And so dealing with the blurriness because of the swollen macula is like a secondary symptomatic issue. There's like a core issue. And so I had to go for all this blood testing, and I did. I had to wait 6 weeks in order to get those results. And those results came in on Wednesday, Nick. Are you interested now?
Yeah.
Are you interested now? Okay, so I had to wait 6 weeks to find out what the heck is wrong with me, okay? So I go to the thing, and I had to sit around 45 minutes in the waiting room, and I see the little sheet that they give the doctor or whatever with like, okay, Thomas Central's here, and they have like clipboard they like put in the thing, and I'm like staring at this clipboard. I'm like, that clipboard has my results, and it sat there for 45 minutes before the doctor came and got me so I could go in and find out like what is going on. And I didn't have any anxiousness or anything about this doctor's appointment. I just figured they would say, it's inconclusive, and then we would have to go through other things. But even that in and of itself would be something, because by doing all the blood tests, like, because they took like 14 vials of blood, so they did like a lot of tests, it would have ruled out like a lot of things, which would like make me feel a lot better, right? So anyways, in like the last kind of 15 minutes that I sat outside waiting for this appointment, I started like, oh no, what if there's actually something on there? And I was like, oh no, I'm just making myself go crazy. So anyway, so I went in a little room and I talked with the doctor, and they said that one of the antibodies in my blood is off. There is what's called a lupus antibody, which is coming in positive, which is a concern. Now, they call it the lupus antibody because it is a indicator that you have lupus, but it is not the only indicator that you have lupus. And so it's an indicator of like other things that have nothing to do with lupus. And so they have to take the indicator, that antibody, and combine it with other things, and then they can say, oh, you do have lupus. And so in my case, they don't think that I have lupus. I'm not even really sure what lupus is, except
I'm not either. That was my next question.
I think you turn into a werewolf at some point, and I don't know. That
sounds kind of cool.
It does sound a little bit cool. I'm not exactly sure where we are in the medical field, whether you do turn into a werewolf or you don't. But anyway, so I mean, my understanding of lupus, because I didn't even Google it up to this point, is that it's bad, but it's not like, it's kind of like MS. It's like one of those like long-lasting chronic diseases. It's not like an instant kill you kind of disease. So anyways, so this antibody being off it's an anticoagulant, which sounds kind of weird because you'd think it would be a coagulant, which means that it would actually cause the blood to clot. But anyways, this thing is an anticoagulant. Maybe that's the body like trying to thin itself and whatever. And so what he said was, it's off. It's the reason that I'm having blood clots. It's a concern. Because I could have a stroke, I could, my leg, if it happened in one of my major veins, which does happen to people, it makes your leg like balloon out and start to rot and whatever, like if you have a clot in places. And then there's also the aneurysm problem, right? So it's just the instant death. That's more like a critical hit, I think, for the disease, which is, it has a very low critical hit percentage. But anyway, it's a possibility. And so, but what he did say on a positive side is that it is possible to have this antibody and this problem where your blood is kind of clotty, and then it just goes away on its own. So that is nice to hear. And so check out what the protocol is. Take another blood test in 3 months.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
That's the protocol. So basically I have to sit around and wait for 3 months. So if they book me in for an appointment in 3 months, chances are pretty good I'll be around in 3 months to have that appointment. I mean, why would they book an appointment if the guy's going to drop dead, right? So
yeah, they'll probably still charge you either way.
Well, they'll charge the government, but
right.
Yes. So, I mean, these doctors, these are busy people, right? They don't book appointments for people that are not going to be around then. So, so that encourages me that they booked me an appointment in 3 months. Anyway, so there really is something wrong with me. I keep trying to tell my wife that, but I think she's still in the denial phase or something. She's like, "Hey, you'll be fine. Go work on the game." This antibody thing is a concern, but the good news is it could be a temporary condition. Because one of my greatest fears is like, hey, what happens if something clots in my right eye? I should be more concerned, I guess, about the aneurysm thing, but I guess I'd be instantly dead and I wouldn't even know. So So I'm less concerned about that. I'm more concerned with surviving with bad vision, I guess. So anyway, we've already talked about that there's a very low probability that it could happen in both eyes. Not impossible, but low probability. So I guess there's so my vision's clear, and that has been really great. I'm coming up to 21 days since that needle, and it still being clear is like really good sign. The second thing is this lupus antibody. He didn't give me any explanation like why that would suddenly be an issue and why it would go away. Just that it does. It just becomes an issue and then goes away on its own. So people can continue to pray for me and wish me well and whatever else it is that they're doing, because I appreciate that, and I'd like to stick around and finish this game. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So I think I covered everything health-wise. Did I leave anything out, or do you have any questions?
Nope.
Okay.
It's a good report.
Yeah. It's good. Because Roger, the artist, was kind of yelling at me that, like, no matter what problem I have, potentially even this antibody thing, one of the ways of dealing with it is good exercise, eating right, and stuff. That just helps anybody, anywhere, in all situations, right? So I'm like, okay, so I had a back problem that got resolved. My eye is clear. I'm like, this is great. I'm going to go for a bike ride because we finally have warm weather now here where I am in Northern Ontario. The snow finally melted at the 15th of May, and so I'm like, I'm going to go for a bike ride, and it's 20 degrees outside. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. I think it's about 400 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm going to go for a bike ride. And I went for a bike ride, and there was this dog that started running at me as I was going up a hill it ran across the property and then onto the street and started chasing me. And this is not the first time that this dog has chased me. It's not every time that I go past that house that dog is even there, but in the years that I've been riding my bike on this island, it's probably the 4th or 5th time that this dog has done that. And so the dog is like rah, 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 and chasing me, and I'm just yelling at it, down, stop, and I'm like trying to bike up the hill, right, bike, and the dog bit me. It bit me right in the calf. And and the owner was there yelling at their dog to come back, and the dog was not coming back, and it bit me, and I just screamed out in pain. I was like, "Your dog bit me!" No profanities or anything, because I don't swear. But I just screamed out, "Your dog bit me!" And it really hurt. And so then I got to, because it was a hill. And so I had to get away from the stupid dog, so I had to just keep going. The dog, I guess, stopped as soon as it bit me. And so I got to the top of the hill. I got a little bit down to the bottom of the hill, and then I got off and I checked it, and I have this like big chomp out of the back of my calf on my left leg.
Oh man, should put a picture of it up there.
Yeah, I can throw up a picture if people want to see. And I shouldn't say it's like a big chomp, but it definitely broke the skin, and I was bleeding and all that. And it didn't get like a pound of flesh or something like that. So then I'm just like, what am I going to do? I just got bit by a dog. I got to bike home. And it was like the exact like perpendicular point from my house. I was like the furthest possible point, whether I go back or I go forward. It's like 10 kilometers home. And
just don't go past the dog again.
Yeah, so I decided to go forward instead of back to the doghouse. And so anyway, so as I was on my way back home, I went down a road I don't normally go down, and then there were 2 dogs on 2 sides of the road on their property, and nobody has their dogs leashed in this crazy town that I live in of Richards Landing, and they're 2 dogs, rah, 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 and I'm just like, oh crap, what do? I'm trapped between dogs before me, dogs behind me. Pretty soon they start dropping out of planes on me. And so finally I just kind of circled around, and then I just went really, really slow. And then when the dogs started running, I just started going real fast, and I managed to make it past the dogs, and I made it to the hospital. And then they started treating me right there, and then I had to do police reports and all kinds of stuff. And I was like, so this is, Roger, this is why I don't exercise, okay? This is why I don't leave the house, because you go for a bike ride, you get bit by a dog, okay?
It sounds like you got like 3 exercises out of it, though. It was like accelerated.
I guess. I don't normally do sprints while I'm cycling, but I did this time. So I've been telling my wife that I need to get a new bike, because I don't know if you know bikes, but I have a hybrid bike. It's not a mountain bike, it's not a road bike, it's a hybrid. And I've been eyeing this road bike for the last little while, and ironically, I actually went in to buy it on Wednesday, and then they're like, oh, we actually lent it out to someone as a backup bike because they're going on a fundraiser thing, and it's our only one that we have, and it'll be back in tomorrow. And I was like, oh, okay. It's like a backup bike in case his bike breaks while he's doing this big long trek or something. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll pick it up tomorrow. And so I went home. So if I had the new road bike, I would have been able to go that little bit faster, and the dog wouldn't have bit me. That's my story, and that's why I'm telling my wife I need that new bike. So the next time you see me in these update videos, I will have a new bike, a road bike, so I can outrun dogs.
Maybe if you listen to Roger and exercise more, you would get that little bit extra speed too.
Listen, we said we weren't going to talk about my weight on these video updates, and then you went and brought it up. Okay, I'm a fatty. I'm a fatty who's trying to make this awesome role-playing game, and you just keep throwing it in my face, and I can't get any work done because I'm just so downtrodden from all the insults coming from you, Nick.
I'm sorry, Thomas. I take it back.
Okay, I forgive you. Okay, so now that everybody's seen how our bromance goes, let's talk about the game. You want to talk about the game?
Yeah, let's talk about the lore. I was promised some lore.
Okay, you were promised some lore. So are you even interested in the lore?
I am. I like anything about stag people.
Okay. So first of all, Nick doesn't understand what a centaur is. He calls them stag people. Okay, so why did I work on the lore this past week? Actually, this past 2 weeks. The reason is first of all, I need to build up some momentum and get back into working on the game. Like I said, like my eye has been this big distraction away. I've had a number of doctor's appointments and forms to fill out and all kinds of stuff. And so I'm just like tackling the AI rewrite stuff that I was doing is just proving too much to be the first thing that I start doing. So I did a little bit of work making those inventory things with the animals and stuff. Now I'm going to add dogs biting you to the game, just so you know. That feature is going to be added in some way. You go to pet a dog, and 1 in 1,000 times just bites your hand, and you lose 10 hit points. And it's a permadeath game, so if you only had 9 hit points when that happened, sorry. So anyway, I was traveling with my wife down in Southern Ontario, and it's a little hard to work in the hotels, and so I was like, you know what, let's switch gears here. In the past, when I've really been kind of stuck or feeling down about the game, I've gone and kind of worked on the lore stuff, and that really got me excited, and the juices flowing, and just that free creativity, if you know what I mean, Nick. Like when you're working on a game, you feel like in the flow of the creativity, just like all this stuff is happening. That feels really good, right? And then there's also times when it's like the ideas are there, but you just can't seem to execute it. Like it's just like the programming's not working, or you don't have the right data model, or whatever it happens to be. It's just like little spurts and starts, and it's just crappy, right? And so
yep. Oh yeah.
So what I find with writing, like the lore and stuff, is there's no programming that gets in the way. It's just like whatever comes in the head comes right out onto the screen, in a sense, and I don't have to deal with any of the programming nonsense and just get cool stuff, down on the screen. Mm-hmm. So there were some questions posted in the forums about the Conclave. Some people had some interest in that, and I was like, you know what? I should really flesh that out. I should spend some time really. I already had a bunch of things about the Conclave and how it sort of functioned and stuff, but I could really lay that out and be definitive about it. And so I decided I was going to do that, and so I have. And in this past little bit, myself, Andrew the writer, and Daryl, who does the graphic design work for us, all three of us have been working on this thing, and we are going to provide a PDF download document for everybody about a little tiny intro about the world, magic, how magic works, and the Conclave and how the Conclave works. And that PDF will be available for download right now as you watch this video. And it's gorgeous. I've seen some of the preliminary stuff, and it's beautiful. It looks really, really good. And it we put in the gold box edition and the collector's edition, you get like an art book, and so this PDF document should give you an indication of the level of quality of what we're going to do for the art book for this game. And also, like, there's going to be a manual for the game and stuff, and just, you know, those old things, those that remember Origin systems and what you used to get in the Ultima box. Like, that's the kind of thing I want to give to people that are getting an actual physical box of this game. So, awesome. So we've probably put about 40 hours into this document, making this PDF, and I'm pretty proud of it. Now, if you download the PDF document and you're like, this thing totally blows, I would like to tell you that we're not done yet. But if you download it and you go, wow, this is really good, then I'd like to say, hey, well, that's an example of the quality that we can do.
Yeah, all responses will be read.
Yes, that's correct.
And considered.
So, like I said, I dived into the Conclave and what they are. And so, now, do you think there's people that aren't going to read this document?
Yeah.
And do you think one of those people's on this video broadcast?
I don't know. Probably.
Nick's not much of a reader, folks. So, if Nick reads it and he likes it, you know it's quality. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, does it have some of the other... Like, I read some of the other lore, and I really liked it. Is it like building on top of that, or is it different? Because I know there was stuff about the Conclave in there as well.
Yes. So what Nick is talking about in terms of the lore is we have a giant history document that details the history of the world going back from, we call it minus 10,000, all the way up to 0, and then forward to 300. And the player starts somewhere around 320 or so. I haven't picked an exact date for when they're going to start, but somewhere in the 320s. And so the Conclave, so the whole game is set in this world, and every world has its context of like what happened before you were born, what happened, why does this nation exist and that one doesn't, and stuff, right? So we don't talk about the Prussian Empire anymore, and there's a reason we don't talk about the Prussian Empire, right? And we don't talk about the Holy Roman Empire anymore, which had nothing to do with Rome. It was just the Germans that thought that was a cool name, so they called themselves the Holy Roman Empire.
I didn't know that.
Well, there's a lot of things you're going to learn from me, Nick. So you know, the world changes, right? Like over time, and so so the game takes place at a very specific point in time, and so the lore that you've read, Nick, is kind of everything that at a high level that leads up to that point. And so the formation of the Conclave is like a really important part of that because it's a mage game. Did you know that? It's a game about mages.
I did, yeah. I picked up on that.
Well, I mean, some people are confused. They're like, what is this, a bard game? Or what is this? And it's not a hobo murder game, so I'm proud to say that. So the Conclave, the creation of the Conclave is very, very important. And so I'm going to say a few things about the Conclave for those people who are like you that just don't want to read a PDF document, okay? But I will say the PDF document has a lot of pretty pictures, okay? And those pretty...
Well, that helps.
Those pretty pictures are the responsibility of Roger, okay? So Roger put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into making these pretty pictures so that you would maybe read the text.
It definitely sweetens the deal. You need to just do a voiceover of it, and I can listen to it. Just, you know.
Like I know you want to listen to my voice as you fall asleep, but I just don't think that's cool with your wife. We've had this conversation.
All right. Okay. It's worth a try.
Yeah. So I don't think I'm going to do the voiceover. So this is all you're going to get. So the mages existed in what's called these free cities. Okay, and I won't get into why there's free cities and all this stuff, but just that there's these free cities that weren't ruled by anybody. They were kind of like these democratic states the city-states. You could say like Sparta or Athens or Venice or something like that, okay? So there's these things. And then you have these medieval cities that are looking at those cities, and if you're kind of a scientist or a poet or an artist or something like that, and you're like, where do I want to live? Do I want to live under the Lord's rule in this kind of very medieval feudal system, or do I want to go live in that kind of free system? And whatever the answer is, you want to go live in the free system. So they end up becoming these really cool, powerful towns, but they're not thinking in terms of monarchy or territory or like being an empire or something. Like they're just trying to do their thing. And so the nobles are like, hey, I want to go and attack those and take those things. And so the mages end up fighting back against the nobles, and you get this whole war going back between them. And the biggest thing that nobles are concerned about is things like mind reading magic, because it's hard to do diplomacy and strategy in war and stuff when you're trying to bluff somebody and they can tell that you're bluffing, and then it doesn't work and stuff. And so there's just... And then, I don't know, like calling like a giant zombie dragon out from the middle of nowhere and having it stomp all over your castle or something, like that's not cool, right? It's like I hired a lot of people to build that castle and it's gone in a few minutes. Like that's no fun. So the nobles think magic's great and they want magic to be a part of life, makes life a lot easier, and that's good and stuff. But just like there's some things like that just shouldn't be done. And so they end up coming to the negotiating table, the nobles and the mages, and they decide to found an organization called the Conclave. And the Conclave is a self-ruling body of mages, okay? So rather than the government, so to speak, ruling all the mages, they are like, hey, we'll create our own organization, we'll police ourselves. And really, who's going to follow up on a mage that's like breaking the rules? Like, first of all, you got to be one to know one, right? So you need to be a mage in order to be able to tell that mage is doing something that's wrong and whatever. And then you probably need magic or counter spells or whatever in order to actually do something about that mage that's doing something wrong. So the whole idea of self-policing seemed pretty good. And so they created the Conclave. And the Conclave has a number of orders to it. And so there's the order of caretakers, and the caretakers are the ones who take care of things. So, you need a body disposed of or something. No, no, they're the ones who track all the records. They're the finance, taking care of paying all the bills, paying all the merchants, ordering stuff. The Conclave is a massive organization that has property all over the place. Plus, they have this really cool, giant castle fortress thing that they built using stone and magic and all kinds of cool stuff, and it's called the Garden. And the Garden is just this massive 5-towered structure where the Prime Magus, he is the head of the Conclave, so that's where the Prime Magus is, and all of his peoples and all the big stuff that happens. Okay. So the order of caretakers take care of like the Garden, and then there's chapter houses of the Conclave. Chapter houses are in each town. Well, not every town, but like they're spread around in the towns throughout the world, and they have their little libraries and their blast chamber and a bunch of other things, and so somebody has to pay those bills and keep up on that, and so that's what the caretaker is kind of responsible for. There's more in the document than what I'm saying right here. I'm just trying to give you the high-level picture of it. So those are the caretakers. And then the next one is the Order of Scholars. Look, I can't even remember. So the next thing is the Order of Scholars, and those are the librarians, the instructors that are responsible for teaching new mages, for testing new mages, making sure they're being tutored correctly and stuff, the whole apprenticeship program. We've had some questions from the fans about like, hey, what is the process of becoming a mage? All that is now detailed in this document. Not every single little step of it, but it's outlined as far as how you become a mage and what schooling you have to go through and stuff. And so the player, I've said it ever since the beginning, that the player is kicked out of school at 16. Well, there's a reason that they're 16. Like, that means something within the game, in the game world, and you'll see in this PDF document why 16 is an important year and age. So the Order of Scholars also has the Master Arcanist, and that word comes from our fans. On the forums. They didn't like the word that I used, and they suggested a bunch of new ones, and I thought this one was pretty cool, so I put it in. And he's the one who knows all the greatest spells. He has access to all the research, what everybody's doing. He knows what's going on. He's like Mr. Researcher, best spellcaster guy ever. So one of the reasons that it's important to have the Conclave kind of mapped out is because the player can become a member of the Conclave. They kind of should, they kind of have to become a member of the Conclave. And then you can get certain positions within the Conclave. Like as you kind of level up your reputation within the Conclave, then you can get voted into these positions. And I don't know which positions are going to be playable and which ones are not, because there's, looking at it, and there's 12 positions in the Conclave. So I don't know if I'm going to program all 12 of them, but I certainly will program some of them, including being Prime Magus, because that's the most important thing, is you want to be head of the Conclave. And when you're head of the Conclave, you can basically do whatever you want. And
as long as you live at the garden.
Yes, as long as you live at the garden. And so one of the... when I think of like victory conditions in this procedural game, one of them is to become head of the Conclave, and somebody can go, I did it! Like, it's hard to do, all right? It's kind of like a diplomatic victory in Civilization. It's hard to do, hard to pull off, but you do it and it feels real good. And then you can decide what you're going to do with the Conclave. Are you going to shut it down and disband it, or are you going to continue it on? And that's like a big decision that you get to make if you're Prime Magus. Then the next order is the Order of Inquisitors. So at the formation of the Conclave, you have this really big problem. So you had this awesome guy named Elwood, and he was really diplomatic, charismatic guy. Everybody loved him. The nobles love him. The mages love him. He's a great dude. He's pretty smart. Well, I shouldn't say smart. He's wise, okay? So he knows the right things to do, okay? So imagine Nelson Mandela is in charge of the Conclave. So that's really great. They're going along. They're forming it. They're figuring it out as they go. And then Elwood dies. Oops, didn't see that coming. Maybe he had an antibody, lupus antibody was off, and and he just dropped. So he dies, and there's no succession plan yet, because they're in the process of like setting this thing up, right? And so there ends up being this big contentious vote that's going to happen with the two remaining council members. Well, not remaining, but there's two major council members, and one of them is like, the Conclave is great. It's exactly what we need. We'll abide by what the nobles say, because that's the only way the world's going to function. And then you have another one that's like, this whole idea of like banning spells from research, I don't really go for that. And her name is Miranda. And so it's one thing to be like casting like these mind spells on people and stuff, but so she's like, that's wrong, not going to do that. But the idea of researching them, like just knowing what's possible and kind of exploring that, like maybe there's some other good things that could come from that, right? And so she's what we call a 1-point separatist. Like, don't really like the way the Conclave certainly is. If we could just move it a degree this way, then we could all be on board. And so there's this big vote that happens, and it's Jakin versus Miranda, and Jakin the Conservatives wins, and so Miranda just walks out. She just walks out, and she's a council member, and that's a pretty high position, and she just walks out on the whole thing. All the other people that were like, yeah, I agree with her and stuff, they left too. And that created what the Conclave calls the Renegades. Now, they don't call themselves the Renegades. They call themselves by their own cool name, which is the Free Mages. So the Free Mages go off, and they basically go underground, and they have these kind of subversive circles that they join up in and stuff. And they're always worried about the Conclave finding out about them, because the Conclave, in order to keep their deal with the nobles, have to go and stomp out these renegades, right? Because these guys are breaking the rules and stuff. And so the Inquisitors is the new order that was created in the Conclave to go after all those renegades. Okay, so you're going to get all your quests coming out of that order there, and you can join the Order of the Inquisitors, and then you can be an Inquisitor going off chasing after the renegade mages. How's that sound?
That sounds cool, although I would just be a renegade. I'd just be sitting in my hovel, building beer. And
I know, so when Andrew and I were working on it, and we're just like, man, Miranda and the Free Mages sounds pretty cool. Why would anybody want to stay with the Conclave? So there will be good reasons for being part of the Conclave, and maybe we need to show a bit more of the benefits that the Conclave has to the people, like ideologically why the Conclave is a good idea. Maybe we haven't done so good at explaining that, but anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to be able to get your spells researched. I know that.
Yes. And then the final order that makes up the Conclave is the Onyx Order, and they are like the CIA or KGB secret spies of the order, and they don't actually report to anyone. They just get to do as they please. Not exactly. They report directly to the Prime Magus, and that's a little bit of an issue. Like, you have like all these like secret police guys that report to just one guy. And he has all the information. The council that's ruling the whole rest of the Conclave doesn't get access to that information. Creates tensions and stuff. But the Prime Magus doesn't care because he has all the information. He gets to be on the council, and so he thinks that's pretty cool. So those are the 4 things. Now that's very much just an information order. Like, they're just watching and seeing, and if they see renegade activity and stuff, then they send it off to the Inquisitors. That's where you get those quest lines coming from. But it goes beyond that. They're just making sure that people are internally within the Conclave, like not renegades, but internally in the Conclave, are doing what they should be doing and following the rules and not researching those spells and that kind of stuff. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's kind of a brief thing of what the Conclave is. So the PDF document talks about what all these orders are, the positions that are within them, what the responsibilities are of those particular positions. It doesn't talk in terms of gameplay because I needed to do the world building, like the setting part first. And then from that, I can create gameplay stuff. And so going through this exercise of writing this stuff has been very helpful to like really zero in. Like, I've always thought that there would be quests coming from the Conclave, but now I know specifically, oh, the Onyx Order got some information, and now you can go and check that information out. Or they found a circle of renegades, and you can go in blasting and take them out, and
Nice.
that kind of
That's
stuff.
my speed.
Yeah, that's all Nick wants to do. Just point me in the direction to blast.
Yeah, I'm a simple man.
I like my fireballs and explosions. Now, there's a few other things that I was able to cover off in this document. The specific questions that were asked. How does the Conclave function? How does the Council function? How do they make decisions within it? All that stuff is answered. Then people have asked, what is the source of magic in this world? Like, for instance, is there divine magic? Like, so in role-playing worlds, they'll have like arcane magic and divine magic coming from the gods, arcane magic coming from, well, we don't really know. And so I answer that. How do people look at magic users, right? Are they friendly to them, and do they distrust them? I think you'll get an answer to that by reading this PDF document. The organization that trains mages, what kind of hierarchy is there to the training and stuff, that's all covered. The origin of the races of the world, I just touch on that a little bit. There's like a paragraph that talks a little bit about that, but my focus here was obviously the Conclave, so I just really like went real fast over that. Yeah, so those were questions that were asked by some of the people, and they're mostly all addressed, and I hope people like what they're about to read.
Cool, I'll certainly check it out.
Okay, well, I think this has been an effective 38-minute advertisement to download a free PDF. Free!
Get it, it's free, dummy.
Yeah, free 99, just for Nick.
My favorite price.
It is your favorite price. Yeah, that's what we've done. A lot of work went into this thing. I think it's high quality. I'd like to hear your feedback on it. If you don't think it's high quality, then I'd like to know how you think it could be improved, because I only want to do high quality things. If you enjoy it and you think it's good, and you want to hear more, then I'd like to hear that too, because I don't want to put all this work into writing things and people don't like it. So it'd be nice to know if people actually enjoyed reading it and such. And not just the first page, Nick, actually reading the whole thing. I've already started working on another future documents, not part of this document, on the free mages and Miranda and the whole legend of Miranda and what that all means, because it's important as to how the renegades and the whole Miranda thing work within the world, because every Inquisitor wants to be the guy that captures Miranda. If we could just stomp out this no good Miranda, then things would be good again. If people like this document, then maybe I'll work on more on the free mage document, which kind of describes how they work. It's nowhere near as detailed, won't be nearly as long because they're free. There's not a lot of hierarchy going on there. So you kind of have two extremes, right? You have like the Native American Indians that are like totally free, just do as they please, and then you have like the super organized Spanish, and contrasting those two worlds. So final thing I wanted to say is right now doing these videos every other week is really working well for me in my life. Kind of like the way my life is right now is working well, but I have seen the light and we need to go back to weekly videos. So I will be going back to weekly videos in the future, not immediately. But back when we had weekly videos, there was like a lot more chatter on the forums and like a lot of stuff. And so going to bi-weekly videos, I saw that just totally drop off. Anyways, it's interesting to see, and that's the solution. But for now, it's going to continue with bi-weekly until I get some good momentum going and we have enough content for weekly.
Sounds great.
Okay, great. Bye, everybody.
Bye.